Okay, how are you doing today?
Good, really good. Yeah, working hard and then just went for a quick ski and then rushed back, shoved some food in my face, and I'm ready to talk about this awesome movie.
Well, tell me about it.
About the story of plastic. Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm assuming you watched it. It just came out on April
yeah.
20th. And just to do a little housekeeping, I want to introduce Global Inheritance to everybody watching and to introduce myself and to introduce you as well. So everybody who's just getting tuned in, I wanted to thank you for joining. And this is the movie club discussion. Welcome. My name is Allison Schill, and we're here to make the best of this quarantine, to make our screen time more meaningful, and to try and find ways to bring more discussion and information and curiosity about the environmental issues that are going on all around us and beyond that too. And our special guest today is Emma Rose. Do you say Emma Rose Cohen or do you say Emma Cohen?
We're chill. You can just be Emma,
Oh,
or I can.
I can help. Okay, great. And you're the founder of the company Final Straw and the product Final Straw as well. And you're moving beyond that now to Final Wipes.
Final
Is that
everything.
final everything?
Which wraps
Great.
really well into the lessons we learned in the movie The Story of Plastic. Yeah.
Okay, well, just a couple of housekeeping things. So with Movie Club, the first rule of Movie Club is you talk about Movie Club. The second rule of Movie Club is you talk about Movie Club. The third rule of Movie Club is that you watch really amazing documentaries and engage in discussions and share. And we might even have some prizes to give away. So definitely tell your friends about it and tune in. This week in particular, we are talking about plastic. So we've got three movies. The Story of Plastic, which is a documentary considered a docu-series, only
Yeah.
there's only one out right now, so I'm not 100% sure if there's going to be more coming out.
Fingers crossed.
And then Toxic Garbage Island and Bye Bye Plastic. So tell me, what did you think of the story of plastic?
Well, to be totally honest, like I generally don't watch these movies because I'm like, ugh, I read so much about plastic every day. Like I'm just so hyper focused on all the headlines. I get the Google News updates, and but I watched it, for this, and I was so glad I did because it's like it's really easy for me to just get kind of lost in the day to day of what I'm doing. And to watch that movie and have such a stark reminder of why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, it was so inspiring. And also to watch, it was so well done. And it put the emphasis on the right syllable. Like, there's so many movies out there and so many nonprofits and efforts around cleanup. And it's like, I'm sorry, but that's BS. Like, we can't focus our efforts on cleaning, this mess up when I was like, what's the good analogy? And I guess like the best I came up with is if you had like 100 dogs shitting in your lawn, and every day you're going out and you're cleaning up the poop, and you're like, if only there was less poop out here. Well, the only way to do it is have less dogs. And so that's a weird analogy for like reducing upstream plastic sources. And the movie really talked about solutions for that, and what do we need as a society in order to incentivize companies to reduce plastic waste. And so I loved it. I highly recommend it. It's engaging. It's exhilarating. It's all of the things. It keeps you really excited to keep watching.
I love your dog poop analogy. That's just so perfect. And it's something I've been in the recycling world for over a decade, and this is a new concept to me that, oh wow, it's not about recycling.
Yeah.
We always think it's about recycling and littering, and that the movie covers, the documentary covers why that is. There was a lot of emphasis put on that
Yeah.
from those campaigns, the Keep America Beautiful
Yeah.
campaigns, the Crying Native American, and we all got really confused about that. Um, what other issues did it bring to light that you think are really important, other than the fact that it's the consumer's responsibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I've read so much around, you know, why are we programmed to think that recycling is the right thing to do? Because every single person is like, I recycle because I care about the earth. And it's like, what this movie does is it kind of takes that idea and it flips it on its head, which is really hard for people to stomach. I mean, even me, it's like I will use something and I go to put it in the recycling bin, and as I'm doing it, I'm like, I know this isn't going to get recycled. And yet, so it's this conflict, and I'm just like, oh God, what do I do? Some of the other, you know, I thought there were some really interesting statistics in the movie, especially around subsidies around around plastic production. This was a fact that I didn't have the exact numbers for, but I think, was it $5 trillion in subsidies go towards plastic production. So that's why we don't have all of these alternative materials flooding the market, because they're way more expensive, because those, you know, technologies aren't subsidized the same way that the plastics are. And another thing the movie talked about, which was super interesting, was how, you know, people are shifting away from you know, fossil fuels based energy sources. And so as a result, the American Chemistry Council is reacting to that by pushing plastic. They're like, okay, people are going to solar. That's going to happen. So what can we do to keep making money, to keep fueling consumerism, to keep, you know, the machine cranking? And it's so sad, because it's like, oh, you know, it's just so based on greed and like, you know, I'm sure all of these executives have kids, and like, how do they justify their actions when you think about this impact on the world that other people are inheriting? So, you know, it's mind-boggling, but I feel like there is a lot of hope, and you know, and not so much hope, I guess, but that these are all things that are being brought to light that you know, people are becoming aware of and taking action on.
Right. Yeah, that's great. And what particularly initially drew you to the issue of plastics in your career, in your life, particularly the way that you've been drawn to single-use plastic alternative
Yeah.
products?
So I got really interested in plastic in college. I went to University of California at Santa Barbara and used so many red Solo cups, like just beyond any recognition of what was going on. And one day I was walking on the beach, and just like, there were all the cups and there was all the plastic trash. And it was just like, oh my gosh, like my actions aren't aligning with my purpose. You know, I went to college to learn more about the world and about myself and figure out what my contribution was going to be. And yet, like, my actions didn't align with that. So I started working with some friends on the single-use plastic bag ban in Santa Barbara. We're like, how can we spice this up a little? So we went to city council meetings dressed as mermaids and served plastic sandwiches to the city council members, because they were suggesting that animals can eat plastic without a problem. We were like, well, here you go. How's that? And
Wow.
and that was like when it really clicked for me. Like, this is something that I'm so passionate about, and also I want to bring my own voice to this and do it in a different way, and not make it, you know, kind of the traditional, you know, NGO sort of way, which is totally fine, but my way is sparkly and fun and exciting and sexy and all of these things that really get people engaged and want to participate.
Yeah, that's kind of the global inheritance way too. Definitely positive, right? You win more flies with honey.
Oh yeah. Oh, we got honey for days over here at Final.
Um, this was something that the movie brought up that I found particularly endearing as a female entrepreneur talking to another female
Yeah.
entrepreneur. What role do women in particular play
Yeah.
in particular female entrepreneurs in getting us off the plastic diet?
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. Like, in this area of the market, it's all women. Like, it's finally the first area of business, or maybe not the first, but it's so female dominated, and it's so cool, because it's like, yeah, ladies, like, let's do this together. And you know, I don't know why necessarily. I guess, like, for me, you know, I've always felt super connected to nature, and you know, the moon and the tides and all of these things. And so it feels like, yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess like as a woman, you're a mother. We've got Mother Earth, like, and like I was part of my other story of how I got really into this is I was in Thailand, and you know, there's plastic everywhere, and I was just drowning in it. And I read this quote, and it said, "With increased privilege comes increased responsibility," and it completely floored me. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm so privileged and I'm so connected to this planet, physically, emotionally, spiritually. Like, what am I doing to give back and contribute to the world? And yes, women are probably smarter too. Thanks for that comment. We're the best.
There are some smart men there, though.
There are, and not to discount it, there are men working in sustainability and working here, but like, I look at all the other people who are working on similar projects as me. It's like, it's all the babes. So
That's awesome. We're the trashy ladies, right?
yeah, we are.
So plastics make it possible. That campaign in the 80s
Yeah.
really stuck in my mind and in the hearts of all of Americans and the planet.
Yeah.
How do you think plastics have changed us?
I mean, you know, it's hard because there is a small part of that campaign I agree with, you know, like there have been so many advancements as a result of plastic. Now, when plastic is used properly, it's an amazing material. It's designed to last forever. It's inexpensive to produce. It's lightweight, you know, it's, you know, somewhat benign. It depends on the type of plastic. And so that's great. But we've used plastic as a material that's designed to last forever in a single-use context. So over 50% of plastic is used once and thrown away. And it never goes away. So, you know, I was thinking a lot after watching the movie about habits and how it's so habitual for us. You know, you go to the takeout place, you get your burrito, you grab a fork, you know, and that's just it. It's not even a thought like of, oh, I have forks at home. So because plastic is just so persistent in every phase of our existence, and it's, you know, it's not until recently, it was never frowned upon. It was never, you know, this this material that was like, oh, maybe like you shouldn't. It was really, it's always been like, this is convenient. This is, you know, free because you don't pay for the cutlery. You don't pay for the straws. Go ahead and take a few. Why not? And so, you know, what we're trying to do at Final is reframe those habits. And the first step of that is awareness. And so, you know, by watching this movie, by reading the articles and really arming yourself with facts, you can completely change your habits and start, you know, changing others around you and the ripple effect.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's so cool that you've tapped into, I really admire what you've done is tapped into your source of energy as a solution to this problem that we're facing and the addiction that we have to plastic. So,
well, in order to change behavior, you have to have a reason, and that reason has to be so deeply seated inside of you. And so, you know, everyone has different values and what drives them, you know, whether it be, you know, you want a better world for future generations, whether it be your personal health, you know, physical, emotional, spiritual, whether it be a financial reason. It doesn't really matter what the reasoning is, because we can frame this issue in all of those different ways. You know, there's an ROI, there's a return on investment around getting off plastics. It's better for human health. It's ending up in our oceans, which is ending up in our food chain. You know, it's polluting the planet for future generations. So whatever your reason might be to quit plastics, connect with that, and then let's change the world. It's that easy.
Something that the film discusses a lot of is how decades of campaigning for anti-litter and recycling have really shifted the idea of who is responsible for plastic pollution from the producer to the consumers. What can be done, or what do you know about that is being done right now to put the onus back on the producers?
Yeah. I mean, those campaigns, how genius are they? Like, first off, hats off to you, like, you know, beverage companies for creating those, because like you had me convinced. Like, I never wanted to be a litter bug. And all growing up, it's like you see someone throw something, you're like, you're a litter bug. And it's like, wait a minute, who's the litter bug here? Like, is it the person throwing it out their window? Or is it, the bottle that you throw in the trash can then, flies off the garbage truck? Is the garbage truck a litter bug? No, the onus is on the company, the manufacturers, the people who are making billions of dollars selling us this crap, and there's nowhere to put it. So, this is, I have, this grand plan for how to solve all these issues. And the movie really spoke very well around extended producer responsibility, which is ultimately holding the manufacturers and the companies responsible for the waste that they're putting out into the world. So in my dog analogy, it's like, hey dog, you shit there, like, you got to clean it up. and obviously maybe not the best analogy, but by shifting the onus onto the companies, you're going to get a lot of changes. So first off, you're going to get a standardization of materials. So as they pointed out, they're, where was it? That they were sorting, I think it was in the Philippines, where they were sorting plastic into 83 different types. We look on the bottle of our recycling, or that recycling symbol, it's 1 through 7. No. Like, there's so many different additives and colorants and plasticizers that are added into plastic that make it really hard to recycle. So by creating extended producer responsibility, you're going to get Coca-Cola, Unilever, Pepsi, all of these the massive polluters of our earth to say, hey, let's work on one formula for a bottle so that it's really easy to recycle. Or, hey, that doesn't work. Let's figure out how we can do collection schemes. The one thing that was missing a bit from the movie, and they touched on it, but bottle deposits have shown really high rates of success in terms of returning materials, because ultimately the issue is that these materials don't have value. So you drink your Coca-Cola and you throw it away because it's not worth anything. But by assigning value to these materials, we can create circularity in the system where it's like, oh, this is actually a valuable material that needs to make it back in. So that's a big part of it. Then additionally, you're going to get better design. At Final, one of our founding principles is that waste is a design flaw. And so if we design better things, we're not going to end up with this pile of trash. Every time I get any packaging or food or whatever, I'm like, especially a pair of scissors, packaged in this crazy pack. And I understand that there's safety concerns, but there's so many better ways to package those scissors versus those packages that you're cutting to try and open it, and then you cut yourself trying to just get scissors out of a freaking package. And with extended producer responsibility, they're going to change their packaging. They're not going to create materials that can't re-enter the waste stream. And, I think there's a statistic floating out there that's 91% of plastic isn't recycled. Okay, that's great. So, that's horrible. So that means that 9% is. Well, of that 9%, only 2% is effectively recycled. So, and this is mind-boggling for most people because we've been told our whole lives that there's these little arrows, and it means that, it goes around and around. The recycling symbol tells us that we just, you put it in the trash can, it turns into another bottle. But that's not what happens. Materials actually get downgraded. And so they turn into, plastic lumber or polar fleece, which then cannot be recycled. So we have to create a system in which companies are looking all the way down the line and ensuring that we create that circularity.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting that Canadians see the past, their extended producer responsibility, where it hasn't quite all the way gone through yet, but where it will start putting the onus on all of the producers of these disposable plastic packaging to make their packaging actually recyclable or reduce it in a way that it's lowered the impact significantly.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention real quick for anybody who's watching, if you do have any questions, go ahead and post them and I'll try to get to them before we finish up. So my next question for you is, what role do reusable products play in the solution to single-use plastics? And more importantly, how can we make them more accessible to the general public?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a balance because, you know, when you look at sustainability, it's not like clear cut A is better than B. And that's really challenging because I think in general people are like, well, what do I do that's better? Because I truly believe that people want to do the right thing. And so, you know, we just have to provide the tools and solutions for that. But, you know, for example, you have to reuse a canvas bag a couple hundred times in order to equal the environmental impact of a single-use plastic bag. Does that mean you shouldn't, you know, use reusables? Absolutely not. It just means that we need to create super high quality reusables that are meant to last forever, which is why at our company, every single product has a lifetime guarantee. You know, we stand behind it and look to companies like Patagonia, who are like the best examples for how a company should run. So I think reusables play a huge role in eliminating single-use plastic. We've got the rise of a new company called Loop, and they are working with, you know, really big corporations to try and figure out how do we introduce reusables? Because as the movie points out, like we just have to eliminate trash altogether and ultimately create, you know, 3 bins. And in the movie they said 2, but I would suggest 3. One for recyclables, which is high quality materials that can be easily repurposed into other materials. One for compost, which is like such a duh that it's like, come on, everyone needs to be composting. And then the last one is reusables. And so what Loop is envisioning is that there are these 3 bins and you have an entire bin dedicated towards, you know, containers that then get recirculated, sanitized, and then refilled. So I think it's definitely a balance between reusables and, you know, innovating materials to replace single use, because there's areas where reusables just won't happen. Hospitals are a really great example, and not in every situation. There's, you know, when you go to the dentist, they stick the same tools in your mouth that they did with the last patient. But there are areas where it's impractical. So in those applications, we need, you know, material innovation towards biodegradable materials like PHA or, you know, seaweed based bioplastics, and but then also have the awareness around it so that people aren't just saying, oh, it's bioplastic, I can use a million of them and it's fine.
Right. And also be able to create the infrastructure to be able to actually break those down in a responsible way. A lot of people don't know that most bioplastics are still being landfilled because there aren't any facilities in their nearby location that can actually take them and turn them into compost or turn them into
Oh yeah, I mean, the infrastructure bit is so massive. They have to be paired together. And, you know, like for example, most bioplastics have the recycling symbol and number 7. But what that actually does is contaminate the recycling stream because there's not enough volume at this time in order to make it a viably recyclable material. The recycling is such a complex system, and it's much like the stock market where the value of materials goes up and down. It's based on volumes and need and you know, supply and demand. And so, you know, it's much more complicated than I think the movie went into, but to understand that it's just not, you don't just put something in the recycling bin and it magically turns into something else is kind of like the base idea of what should be spread.
Right. Yeah, it is really confusing, the labels, the recycling symbol being on things. And I found out that you actually only have to have your product be recyclable in over 50% of the municipalities in America in order to be able to put that recycling logo on it. But the majority of municipalities can't recycle things like styrofoam.
Yep.
Okay, I have another question for you. This was kind of a this is actually my question because I'm really curious about this. So I remember in the 90s when reusable water bottles were starting to become a thing because disposable water bottles were exploding everywhere.
Yeah.
And there was a big scare about BPA. And everybody was like, don't use a reusable bottle, it's got BPA in it. And so then of course everybody started putting BPA free in all their bottles. And I think that was our first real introduction in this generation as to the fact that the ingredients of your reusables are actually a really important thing, the materials that they're made out of and how they're sourced as well.
Yep.
You know, are they being sourced from a sustainable and ethical company or country? Is it hurting people's livelihood somewhere?
Yeah.
So I guess the question for you is, what advice do you have for consumers about doing their own research on the materials used and sourced to make their reusable product?
Yeah. I mean, that is a very good question. And first off, just to talk about BPA a little bit, you know, it's tough. And this is another example of where, you know, like the answer isn't easy. And so it's not just like A versus B. BPA alternatives. So when it says BPA free on something, it means that there is an alternative, because BPA is a plasticizer that holds everything together. And there's studies that show that those alternatives are 6 times more damaging to, you know, your hormone system, to your body. And so, oh my gosh, you know, when I see that, but the thing is, consumers crave that label and they want to know, does this have BPA in it? Because that is what was so heavily publicized. So just be aware that BPA free does not mean safe in any way, shape, or form. You know, when in terms of reusables, like, I just don't use plastic in general. You know, plastic is a relatively inert material in terms of, you know, eating off of it and stuff, as long as the food is cold and it doesn't have any fatty content. But as soon as there's heat and, you know, grease, it starts to absorb the toxins in the plastic. So in terms of reusables, I really try and stick with glass, stainless steel, and silicone. Those are kind of my go-tos, if it's coming in contact with food. So that's really important.
And even within silicone, I hear that there are some companies that cut corners and add chemicals to the silicone that are still leaching into your food.
Yeah.
How do you know?
So look for platinum silicone. That is the highest grade silicone you can get. And, you know, if you're trying to get a reusable and it's like, it seems very inexpensive compared to the rest, that's probably because they're using cheap materials. So, you know, be aware that, like, with a higher price tag comes quality, generally, not always. And so, you know, that's why we have a $25 straw. And people are like, that is insane. And we're like, yeah, but it literally will last you forever. And we use the highest quality materials we can find. And so the price and the quality are very closely linked. And not to say that that's always the case, but it is a lot of the time.
Right. What about bamboo? A lot of people are from paper to bamboo, and I know it requires a lot of water to make bamboo. I mean, it requires a ton of water to make paper, but
so ultimately, it really depends what the material you're replacing is. So, you know, if you're talking about a bamboo fork versus, like, you know, and this is like a reusable bamboo fork versus like a plastic one, you know, there's going to be obviously a break-even point at which you need to continue using that bamboo fork in order for it to have a lower environmental impact. In terms of safety, bamboo is generally relatively safe, but the problem is that you have to coat it with an epoxy in order to make it, you know, not absorb liquid. And that's where you end up with, you know, different toxic materials and issues there. So it's tough. You know, that's honestly why, in terms of like my reusables and what I use on a regular basis, it's stainless steel, glass, and, you know, here and there silicone.
yeah. I'm still trying to figure out if recycled toilet paper or bamboo toilet paper is better.
Find a wipe.
Right.
Reusable toilet paper.
What are the biggest challenges and potential solutions in getting more people to reduce their plastic consumption in the US and or globally?
Well, you know, I think globally it's a much more complex situation, because, I mean, first off, you know, everyone deserves a beautiful environment to live in as a human right. And what's happening abroad is that, you know, you have these much lower socioeconomic, you know, areas where they can't afford to buy a whole bottle of shampoo. And so what, used to happen in the old days, or, not even that long ago, is that at the store, they would squeeze, they'd have a big jug of shampoo, you'd bring your little glass thing, and then they'd, portion it out, you'd get your daily ration of shampoo. Well, the plastic companies realized that actually, if we put them in these little sachets, that can be the distribution method. So that's a really complex system, because you're not only looking at plastic waste, but also social issues and poverty and all of these other aspects. But, I think that the shift needs to happen again on the front end. So holding these companies responsible for that waste, all of a sudden, if Unilever has to then take back all of these sachets they're producing, and there's no way to deal with them in these countries, they're going to shift. And then from there, that's how the communities can shift. But it really does. So that's kind of the top down version of where, this is like policy change and legislation. And that needs to happen in addition to bottom up. So this is around awareness, education, and, activism, using your voice. Every single one of us has a platform, whether it be, 5 people or 5 million, it doesn't matter, because we're all very powerful in helping change and create these continued ripples.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. That's so big, is to feel helpless, use your voice, use it for good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the US, like, we mentioned infrastructure, which is a really big issue in terms of like dealing with compost. Like very few people have, you can go out and put your compost on the curb and someone's going to pick it up. So I think that, that is, this kind of like top down aspect that needs to change and shift. But the same factors that apply abroad apply here in terms of awareness, education, speaking up, and then supporting legislation. Vote, use your voice, vote with your dollars, support companies that are doing amazing things, pushing the envelope. And, there's more than one way to vote. So choose wisely.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it was very enlightening for me to see in that video how other countries are really impacted by this. I just recently went to Borneo.
Yeah.
Here, and saw people burning plastic trash on the beaches. I saw entire communities just with trash floating all around them. And my first thought was, well, they just must not be educated on it. So when I went to talk to the locals about it, why are people throwing things in the trash and burning it? They're like, because we don't have a system to get this much trash out of here.
Yeah.
And talk about how America had built up its recycling system and its material recovery facilities for years before we started imposing this much plastic on the planet. So,
well, and it's like, look at how much infrastructure we have, how much money we have to support these systems, and where does our trash go? It goes overseas. So it's like, money doesn't solve the problem, because, obviously in the States, we have way more than a lot of other countries. And yet we still are shipping our trash and recycling, off and out and away. So, I think that, yes, if the infrastructure is so important, and understanding what the drivers are in this. And that's what the movie did so well, is it's like, let's look at the problem, at the root cause of the problem, versus like cleanup. And I mean, people are like, is Fonstrad going to host a beach cleanup? It's like, no, maybe, but that's not what we want to promote. And not that you shouldn't pick up trash when you're out on the beach, do, and I do all the time, but is that where we want to put our energy and our money and our effort in telling people that this is solving a problem when it's not?
I was in New York last year, and just came out of the subway from the airport and saw a man buy a packet of fruit things, and then he peels off the thing and just throws it behind him. And I stopped him and I said, "Excuse me, sir, you just threw this on the ground."
Yeah.
And he came back at me that he was mad at the city and therefore they should have to clean it up.
Yeah.
I said, I understand you think that's how that works, but that's not actually how that works. That piece of plastic is probably it's going to rain tonight, going to go straight into the storm drains and out to the ocean. And he stopped and he was like, really? It's like, yeah, the city's never going to even have to look at that. It's just going to go out into your dinner, into your
Yeah.
fish dinner.
And
I
like,
think
is the
people,
city, do they feel your punishment? Is the city going to change as a result of you throwing that trash? Like, you know, be
yeah.
upset with the city and then go vote as a way of using your voice and your action.
So speaking of voting, like, and the fact that we've got this extended producer responsibility thing coming up, what other victories have you seen in recent years surrounding the fight against plastic?
Yeah, I mean, these last couple years have been so amazing. It's like the spreading legislation, and even though it's small wins, and I will call, you know, the straw legislation small wins, but also big victories in that like they're getting passed. It's showing that, you know, communities want these protections for their beaches, for their mountains, you know, whatever part of the world you're in, you know, you want to protect it. So it's been so amazing to kind of be alongside, you know, all of these straw bans, all of these plastic bag bans, because, you know, when we were in college working on the single-use bag ban, it was like, it was the gnarliest uphill battle and trying to convince people that these are actually polluting the environment and ultimately creating a larger cost down the road. I think it's really hard sometimes to look at, you know, long-term impact. It's like, oh, I need to carry my chips and my soda home. I need this bag. And it's like, okay, yes, but then what is the cost of that down the road? And how does that impact, you know, pollution cleanup and recycling? And, you know, I think they touched on it lightly in the movie, but plastic bags are so hard to recycle. And anytime you put any film plastic in your recycling bin, when it goes through all that machinery, it gets stuck. And so it completely, they actually have to shut down the recycling line and pull it all out every few hours. And so, you know, film recycling, yes, you can, you know, put all of your bags in a thing and then take it to Whole Foods or somewhere that collects film plastic. But in general, it's very challenging to recycle and actually causes a lot of issues. So it's I think, you know, we're seeing, you know, countries banning single-use plastic bags in Africa, in the EU. We've got, you know, some of the most comprehensive single-use plastic bans, you know, around cutlery and plates. And ultimately, this is going to drive the market. This is going to drive how companies react and what kind of materials they're producing. So the more, the better.
Yeah. Because the cost of all these other alternatives like compostable paper products or reeds for straws are going to, you know, in a restaurant are going to go down the more that we actually are able to adopt them and have a greater buying power.
Absolutely.
So I saw your little BuzzFeed video for the final wipe with the mermaid. It was great. My friend Jessica Alder was in that, and I was wondering, how long have you been thinking about Final Wipe? Did that come about because of the COVID-19
Yeah,
thing?
so it's actually a super funny story. My favorite holiday is April Fool's, and I take it very seriously, and I like to do ridiculous videos. So back in January, I was like, oh, reusable toilet paper, that's ridiculous. Why don't we do that as our April Fool's? So come March, we're like editing the video, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, the world has changed so much. All of a sudden, reusable toilet paper is a like potential thing that people would need, and just paper products in general. You know, I've stopped using paper towels years ago, and was always kind of thinking in my head, like, what could the alternative be? And like, you know, we all have rags at home; they exist, but how many people are still using paper towels? And I would say a lot. You know, a lot of my friends, a lot of people I see on a regular basis, like they use rolls all the time. And so how do we kind of shift the focus from, you know, just single-use plastic to all single-use items that are causing like a net environmental impact? So basically mid-March, I was like, okay, like I can't launch this as an April Fool's joke. It's too relevant. Why don't we actually create something that can replace paper products? So, you know, you can use it to wipe your butt if you want. You can use it to wipe your counters, you know, not in that order, But so, you know, it's basically a multi-purpose cloth that you can use anywhere. And we're also developing a non-toxic sanitizing solution so you can also use it as a sanitizing wipe. And you know, it's really funny because the comments on the BuzzFeed video, you know, people are like, "Oh, this is a rag," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And if you have rags at home and you use those, don't buy this. Like, I'm not trying to just create products to make money. Like, I'm trying to solve problems and get people that are kind of on the edge of like, like reusable towels, like instead of paper towels, like that sounds interesting, but like, I don't know. And so how do I convert those people? And that's where we're really focused on this product is getting that foot in the door, getting the, you know, busy mom who's like cleaning up after her crazy kids all the time to be like, this is actually doable and I can do it. And thank you, Final, for making it easy.
Yeah. And it makes it, in your defense, when I first saw makeup pads, you know, reusable makeup pads, I was like, I can just use rags. So I have a couple of scarves that I use, but it's really annoying. And I wish I had the little makeup pads every time because you can identify them in your laundry a lot easier. You don't have to worry about them fraying,
Yeah,
you know. So in your defense, it actually does make sense that there might be something that would encourage people to use it more often
yeah,
if it was made correctly
totally.
in the intention of what you're trying to create it for.
Like,
So that's really
if you cut up old t-shirts, like I honestly, I would rather that than you buy another product. Like, you know, I'm so all about using what you already have. But if you don't have something and you're ready to make this switch away from paper towels, paper napkins, you know, maybe even toilet paper if you want to be adventurous. I use a Final Wipe with my bidet and I love it. I only recommend it with a bidet for number 2, by the way. If you want to use it to replace sanitizing wipes, all of these items that, you know, we use once, throw away, and paper is made from trees, and sanitizing wipes have plastic in them, then and generally really harsh chemicals. So just shifting that idea around, you know, what am I throwing away on a daily basis and how can I minimize that? And that's really what I tell people to do. They're like, what do I do? And I say, go look in your trash, go look at what you're throwing away, and go figure out how to swap that out for something more sustainable.
yeah. Thank you. Well, I want to open this up to see if anybody has any questions. Let's see here.
And while you guys are asking questions, I can just speak a little more about what we do at Final and just the kind of products that we've created. So this is our first product, Final Straw, and it's a reusable, collapsible straw that fits on your keychain. It comes with a little cleaning device, so you can clean it on the go, and a little keychain attachment, so you bring it everywhere. So if you're into sucking, Final Straw is the Cadillac of straws and solves the problem of single-use plastic straws when you're out and about.
Great. So somebody's if Final is going to make a laundry detergent tab eventually.
So I am so fascinated with, you know, pods and tabs and using that as, you know, a potential replacement to these sachets that we're seeing, you know, in other countries. So nothing is off the table. You know, I definitely have too many ideas. And so trying to focus in on first creating this line of foreverables and then looking at personal care products and how can we, you know, make this system more sustainable by, you know, our company doing something different. And that's really big for me. Like, you'll never see Final, you know, sell a regular metal straw because those exist. And I'm not trying to just like create products to create products and brand products just to brand products. We're trying to innovate, do things differently, and solve a problem in a different way. Because that's how we're going to change this, is if we get all these companies doing different versions of the same thing.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'm not seeing many questions pop up, so hopefully if anybody wants to ask you directly, they can do so at the Instagram handle at Final Straw.
Yep.
Is there any other way to be in touch or follow you and follow your progress?
Yeah, so you can also find me personally at Emma Sirena, which is Sirena. And then, you know, follow us on Instagram at Final Straw, Facebook, you know, all the social platforms. If you like silly environmental memes, we specialize in those. So yeah. I do see a couple questions coming in. Is Final Wipe available now? So it's on Kickstarter right now. We actually have one more day on Kickstarter. And what's super cool, if you back Final Wipe, is you get exclusive access to this baby, which is our next new product. And this is Final Spork. And then we also have Final Fork. So these are so cool. I'm so excited about these products. It is just the sexiest, most badass fork you've ever seen. I've never called a fork sexy until now, but it is. And they're just super solid. And it, you know, I think ultimately what we're trying to do is create an elevated experience. And this is, you know, where we're talking about plastics being rooted in convenience. How can we make reusables feel better so that people want the feeling of this amazing fork when they eat their salad versus a plastic one? And if you can create that connection, and, you know, I studied neuroscience in college, so this is kind of thinking about behavior, but if you can create, you know, an activation in the reward system of your brain, when you use something, you're way more likely to use it again. So that's why, you know, everything we make, it's like, boom, it's fun, it's exciting, it's engaging, it creates that, you know, wow factor. So that's a big thing for us. I see Reptile Rachel shocked at how cheap Final Wipe is. So inexpensive, not cheap. And yes, we're offering a very low price on Kickstarter to just get the word out. You know, we're not trying to make a bunch of money on this. We just want people switching out their single-use paper products for reusables, and the Kickstarter is a way to test the market. And, you know, this is going to be the first round of production. So we're really dialing it in, what is working, what's not. And then, you know, when it goes to retail, it will have a higher price.
Great. So there's one question from Valerie. Where do all the grocery bags go? If we use our own bags, we use our own bags, but you're curious if they're recycled. So right now, probably not.
So, you know, it obviously depends on what the material of the bag is, but if we're talking about single-use plastic bags, they're going to landfill. So as I mentioned, film plastic is really, really challenging to recycle. And so it's a very low value plastic. Right now, after China put in the green sword, we stopped having anywhere to send our recycling. We used to send everything to China. And, you know, as you know, the United States is a single stream recycler. So that means we put everything in one bin. And we also do a lot of wish cycling, which means, I hope this is recyclable. I'm going to throw it in there. It doesn't matter. And so then at the recycling facility, they're getting all of this junk, super contaminated, you know, not like food waste on there and, you know, all kinds of hazards. And we were sending that to China, and China was finally like, no thanks, we don't want your trash. So now we're really sorting out the most valuable plastics and then maybe recycling those, which is just 1 and 2. So I can tell you with utmost certainty that anything beyond a 1 or a 2 plastic is not getting recycled right now, including plastic bags.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you should stop. If you do have to buy those products, it doesn't mean you should stop putting it in the recycling bin, because there are occasionally sometimes solutions and connections made with certain cities, municipalities, and waste haulers that are able to actually find a buyer for that type of product. So
yes, and they're stockpiling those materials. So basically, you've got bales upon bales upon bales. But, you know, I would honestly suggest, though, take a week and throw all of those materials away and see how that feels and see how that motivates you to change behavior. So there's a really interesting effect called the moral licensing effect, which means that when we do something that we think is good for, you know, ourselves, for the earth, we actually will do more of that behavior. So it's kind of a complex idea, but basically the way it's explained easily is that they did a experiment where they took 2 groups of people. So with the first, and they told both groups, you're testing out scissors. Okay. So, you know, one group of people goes into a room and they have a recycling bin and a trash can. The other group of people go into a room and they just have a trash can. So they're snip, snip, sipping away, testing the scissors. And then at the end, the researchers go in and they're actually measuring how much paper did these people use based on the presence of a recycling bin or just a trash can. And what they found is that in the presence of a recycling bin, people used 30% more paper. So, you know, recycling creates this kind of like warm, fuzzy feeling in our hearts that we're doing something good for the earth. And then therefore we're going to use more of that. And I've seen it a million times, you know, in a whole host of ways. You know, they've shown that people who have solar panels use more electricity. You know, it's like all of these things where we're like, oh, well, I'm doing something good. Therefore that offsets the, you know, negative actions that I'm doing.
Yeah. So Taryn had a question. How do we make reusable and sustainable products more available in rural and small town areas? Yeah. How do we make it more accessible?
That's a really good question. And it's honestly hard to answer. Like, you know, what we're trying to figure out at Final is like, how do we take, you know, a $25 straw and make more accessible products for people that obviously would never be able to afford that? You know, ultimately by, you know, with the creation of extended producer responsibility, we're going to create companies incentives to, you know, bring that chain down to all communities, regardless of socioeconomic status. So it's challenging. And I think that's something that I think about a lot. Like, I don't want to just be creating elitist products for rich people. That's not what I want to do. But like, I'm also selling a $25 straw. So, you know, that's also why, you know, we're part of 1% for the planet, and we focus all of our donations on policy, because, and that's going to be that top down that really drives change. And then the whole mission of our company is to spread awareness through these products. So, you know, it's that sandwiching that we need just way more of.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So I think I wanted to thank you for your time today, and I want to thank the audience, everybody that tuned in. And I also wanted to wrap up things by saying that you can all remember the rules of Movie Club. First rule of Movie Club is you talk about Movie Club. And the second rule is you watch incredible award-winning films and documentaries with friends. Well, you know, obviously from a distance right now. And the third rule is participate in discussions. And the fourth rule is win incredible prizes. So don't forget to sign up for Movie Club. It's free to join. You can sign up with the link in our bio at Global Inheritance. And stay safe, stay apart, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for participating. That was so fun.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.